parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took two feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city school. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. This made her unhappy. She could not she she could not help me with my lessons. She did not believe in the things they taught at the English school and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed. To her, music had lewd associations. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meant for gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. When Arthur's parents got settled in the city, then they asked Arthur and grandmother also to come to city to accompany them in the city. Now in the city they have a different life routine than the village. In the city there comes a turning point in the friendship of grandmother and Arthur. Although both of them were sharing the same room, but now the routine was different. Grandmother could not accompany him to the school. She could not go with him to the school because now he was going to an English medium school. He was going by the bus, so she could not go to his school. And now there were no dogs in the city. But grandmother started feeding the sparrows in place of dogs in the city. The sparrows used to come in the courtyard and she used to feed them. In the beginning, grandmother kept on asking Arthur whenever he used to return back from the school about his studies, what he was being taught there. And when he told her that he was taught their English words, he was taught their Western science and the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, a world being round, etc. All these things made her unhappy. She could not help him now in his studies, and she did not believe the things were taught to the author in the school. She was a little bit upset. She wanted that her grandson should be given the teaching of God and scriptures. She was upset, but she accepted it comfortably. But when one day author announces that in his school music lessons are being given to him, this really made upset grandmother. She got upset because music for her means at the time of grandmother, at the time of Kushan Singh, at the time music was associated with the harlots and beggars. It was not supposed to be for the gentlefolk. And so grandmother was really very sad to know about it, that her grandson was taking the classes of music. She got very unhappy. She was upset and she stopped talking to him. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. While she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bits, hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirpings. Some came and perched on her legs, others on her shoulders. Some even sat on her head. She smiled but never shook them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. When I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age one could never tell. but my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She came to leave me at the railway station but did not talk or show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayer, her mind was lost in prayer, her fingers were busy telling the beads of rosary. Silently, she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. When Arthur went to university, then he was given his own room. Dear students, the common link between Arthur and his grandmother was snapped. No doubt that grandmother hardly liked his music classes. Grandmother hardly liked the things which he was being taught in the school. But still they were sharing the same room. They were able to see each other. But now when Arthur was grown up, when he went to university, then he was given the separate room. So the common link was snapped. Now grandmother accepted her loneliness, her seclusion, and she hardly talked to anyone. She just kept on busy herself on the spinning wheel. She used to spin the wheel from sunrise to sunset. Only in the afternoon she used to take rest, and at that time she used to feed the sparrows, and that used to be her happiest half hour spent with the sparrows. She used to feed them. All the sparrows used to clack there. Some of the sparrows used to sit on her legs, on her shoulder, and even on her head. She never shooed them away. She always smiled to them, and it was really the happiest half hour for her. When Arthur further grew up and he decided to go for further study to abroad, then Arthur thought perhaps grandmother would be no more there. Perhaps grandmother may die because she was very old. She was as old as that she could not grow more older than that. Dear students, as you know, that after the old age, there is death. That is the fact, that is the reality of life. So Arthur thought that if he will go to abroad for 5 years, maybe when he will return back, maybe at that time, grandmother may be not alive. But grandmother was strong enough. She was still alive. She was not even upset when she comes to know that Arthur was going to abroad. She went to see him off to the railway station. She didn't show any emotion. She didn't show any weakness. She kept on reciting her prayers and telling her beads. Although she kissed him on his forehead, at that time, Arthur thought that perhaps this was the last physical contact between them. Perhaps when he will return back, grandmother may be not there. But no, dear students, grandmother was there. Grandmother was strong enough to wait Arthur to come back to his own home.